and welcome to the Love and Compassion podcast with Gissele. We believe that love and compassion have the power to heal our lives and our world. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content. On today's podcast, we'll be talking about parenting with heart, and we'll be talking to Joe. Joe has worked with children and parents and families for the previous 10 years. He started out as a qualified teacher. He then quickly became interested in helping children and families on a deeper, more holistic level by becoming a play therapist before training in compassionate inquiry and at the Neufeld Institute. With a background in psychology, play therapy, teaching, and now compassionate inquiry, he is particularly keen in working in supporting families, parents, and adolescents. And he's also just started his own podcast called The Caring Instinct. Welcome to the podcast, Joe Atkinson. Hi, Joe.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for joining us. So looking forward to chatting about this.
Yeah,
I was
me too.
wondering, sorry, go ahead.
I said me too, yeah.
I was wondering if you could start by telling our audience how you got interested in compassionate inquiry.
Well, I'll have to go back a little bit further. Before I started teaching, I was studying addiction psychology and counselling. That was what I kind of did fresh out of university. And I read a book by Gabor Mate, very famous in Canada and around the world, in the realm of hungry ghosts, and about addiction. And as I moved into childhood, he was also writing about child development and ADHD and other books. So I kind of just was always following what he was doing, and so that took me to when I started working with children. I was always following his stuff, and the story goes, I had children myself. They're now 4 and 2, and I didn't want to work with children and go home to children. I wanted a bit of balance there, to be honest. So my intention was to start working with adults and do something a bit, have a bit of balance. And it just so happened that Compassionate Inquiry just started up around that time, so I was just straight into it, really.
For those who might not know, can you tell us a little bit about what compassionate inquiry is?
Compassionate inquiry is a psychotherapeutic approach developed by Dr. Gabor Mate. It's an approach to counselling, and it's kind of a cocktail of how he's developed the process of working, of being with people over the years, which I think he was kind of put under pressure to share with others. He didn't really think it was a thing, and then he decided to do it, and it's taken off and been a big hit, and I'm really grateful to have studied and been a part of it.
Yeah. Why did you think that he didn't think it was anything that he should share?
Because the way he talks about it was just how he naturally did with people. And he was a doctor. He worked with addictions as well, and he wasn't a therapist with training, but he became very famous and would do a lot of research, would write books, and he would spend 5 minutes with someone or 20 minutes with someone. And in my mind, it kind of developed in this cocktail of, as he learned and put things together and intuitively formed it. For him, I think it was just something he did.
So it naturally flowed through him.
Yeah, it just naturally flowed. If someone would say, that's a thing, he'd be like, oh, maybe it's not a thing, but
yeah. And what does it entail?
Yeah. We would call them stepping stones. So it's an inquiry, and we might be guided by our own curiosity and interested in what's showing up in the moment. It entails a lot of body work, noticing feelings, going into childhood, and finding out about coping mechanisms and patterns, beliefs that might underlie the behavior, which we're really interested in exploring, and which show up and manifest as issues in our lives, really.
Yeah,
and that's why I find the link with children really interesting as well, because with children we're very interested in behaviors and pulling and pushing at behaviors and shaping them very early. So yeah, I like the links.
Yeah, for sure. And I know one of the key aspects of the compassion piece is the curiosity, is the shifting away from the place of judgment. Yes. Do you think it's easier for us to do that with children than it is with adults?
Oh, depends, I think. depends on a lot of things. For me personally, it's always been easier with children. Yeah. I think for some people it's harder with children, and some people it's just different on different days as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it depends on a lot of things. It could be anything.
Yeah.
What's it like for you?
I think I think it used to be, like you said, very similar in terms of I used to be easier for me to be more, I would say, caring, kind, open, curious with kids. I think I historically expected adults to know better.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's more, the more I became more loving and compassionate towards myself, the more that I didn't need other people to act differently. And so I was then able to be more open and more curious about them.
Yeah. Okay.
But in the beginning, it was definitely more toward the kids. Yeah, more likely.
And I think there's a lot of people, and I think some, but on the other hand, there's some people that we really need to get these kids up to, up to standards or socialize and stuff like that. And maybe with adults, they think there's, it's too late or something like that. So they can be really maybe the opposite.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really important topic, which is how the school system is sort of structured, right?
Yes.
I think the school system is structured in a way, I see it in my kids' schools, is structured more around the achievement, less so much on the social emotional pieces. Like, to me, I would love to see schools teach about self-love, self-compassion, healthy relationships, like those key things that we're always striving for. And yet the focus really is on math, arithmetic, like those things that are more like achievement based.
Well, in the UK, you do have those things, but they're kind of like, they're on the outskirts. They're not. It's not a central part. It's it's like, oh, okay. It's almost like, oh, okay, we'll put it in there. Kind of.
You mean like as an afterthought?
Yeah, it's something that's around, and people take it seriously. It's not a joke, but it's not as central as it should be.
Yeah. So and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because to me that's sort of fundamental, especially in like when you look at bullying and harassment that can happen in schools. It can be sort of challenging for children if they are not able to regulate their own emotions. So, and if they're not able to regulate their own emotions, it's hard for them to learn. And so you would think that there would be a vested interest in teaching those skills so that the kids can absorb more of the information that is being taught. But it's sort of strange that way. Do you think that the school system sort of needs some revamping, or do you think that it's good as it is, or what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure it needs revamping. For me, it's really lost in the UK, and there's so many children they'll get diagnosed with ADHD, with a whole number of different, as you might call them. And one thing I notice here in the UK, and I think it happens in other countries, is that there'll be certain behaviors that might manifest oppositionality, or there's frustration, or there's this acting out, and the school's general approach is there must be a problem with this child, and so that's where the attention is, and we'll get together. We say, okay, what must be wrong with it? Maybe there's something wrong with his brain, or a disorder or something like that. And that's where the energy goes. And it's very hard to step back and look at the environment they're in and see it as part of it as well. And we kind of just get lost in that. And then what happens is families get lost in that thought as well. They go down the path. They might look for a specialist in whatever, and we kind of get a bit lost. But everything points towards the child as the one who's got the problem. And in a way that's right. They're manifesting that, that's where there are issues, you can see that, but it also gives that message to the child that you are a problem, and it just makes things much harder.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. I think of that quote that talks about how, if a flower doesn't bloom, you don't blame the flower. You look at the conditions which prevented the flower from coming up, right? But you're right. We spend so much of our energy and attention on the blaming thing, right? Because it can't be the system. The system is set up in a specific way. And I think what we don't do well is deal with outliers, right? Whether it be too intelligent, what people consider too intelligent from an IQ perspective or not, the systems are mostly made up for the people that fit a box. They fit the 80% box. And for those people that are outliers, rather than the systems being able to accommodate, it's sort of like you as a kid have to adjust to these systems, which makes it more challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, yeah, you're right about the outliers, but also I think the people that don't get noticed are in there. It's almost setting them up for issues later in life as well. They almost sail through school maybe without any big issues or anything, but they come out of it whenever it is 18, 19 to 16 to 20, and they have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
There might be depression, or they're very lost. And the school system works very much, you do your year and then we pass you on to someone else, and it's very narrowly for, okay, we want to get you up to here we have like great, a number 7 or 8, and then I'll pass you over to the next, and then we get you up. Yeah. And it's really hard to see the big picture.
Yeah, I had heard that it was sort of like the factory work, right? Like you just kind of like piecemeal things, right? And that it was structured similarly to factory work. And the times also align with people working. And so it's very much structured that way rather than self-directed learning or self-interested, whatever you're interested in, you'd gravitate. And it's interesting to me that the schools that are not publicly funded work that way, right? The Montessori's, all of those kinds of schools. It seems a little bit strange to me that we've sort of created these systems.
There's a guy, Ken Robinson, but he died recently actually, but he's got a TED talk, and in one of them he said, if you went to any business with the school model, they would think it was crazy. I.e., you tell them, okay, we're going to get your workers from 9 to 10. We're going to get them all to do accounting for an hour. Then we're going to ring the bell. We're going to make them get up, go to a different room, forget about accounting, and do marketing for an hour. Then we're going to ring a bell. Then we're going to get them to get up, go to a different room, and they're going to do sales for an hour. The business would just laugh. They would just laugh at you for if you would try and get them to implement that model. It's a weird way to do things. And I think schools, where the whole reason they came about was the main reason at first was to get people into factories.
But I don't think we've modernized them too since that time, right?
No.
I think it's based on a very outdated model.
Yeah, it's like we've been sucked into them, and even if we've changed ourselves, we're still kind of plugged into that system. So even if we don't have the same intentions, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and even I was reflecting on, so I've done some postgraduate degrees, and even those systems don't seem to really work. Like with the ability now to learn on online platforms, to learn from different sources, to Google anything, right? It just makes you wonder how these systems are really going to survive. Like it's kind of seems sort of outdated, right? Like it seems sort of like these systems really aren't helping us be optimal.
And the ironic thing for me is that my kids are 4 and 2. So I've seen, my daughter's only just started school, and, already they've learned so much, and they've not, the learning process is very natural.
Yeah.
In a way, we get in the way of it more than we help it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they gravitate naturally to learning. But we sort of like these systems sort of, I think, make it harder. Yeah. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the work that you do with parents, because especially in parenting, compassion is definitely needed. As a parent myself, and you as a parent, can you talk about some of the challenges that you have seen in working with people? And we can, talk a little bit about some of the challenges that come from parenting.
Yeah, sure. So where do I along a similar line of what's happening with the schools and education is, to me, it almost feels that it's similar for parenting as a general. It's here that you can go into the bookstop here and there's thousands of books, or maybe thousands is exaggeration, but it feels like hundreds of books on, this is how you parent.
Yeah.
This is what you do, slightly different lenses or ways to do it, but this is almost like it's a skill that we have to learn all of a sudden. And it's almost like we've lost our confidence to parent. And my belief is that that's come from a part, we've lost our connection to ourselves, and in some ways, and part of that might be that compassion that is so useful in parenting. So what I would, if I could do it, if I do, that's great. But my intention is to help parents to kind of reconnect to themselves and find that kind of parenting instinct within them. I really don't want to be telling people what to do or this is how we do, because it puts us in almost like a dependent role, which is actually feeds the anxiety of the children that they might be with, because they might need another session or to read that next book or stuff like that. I want to empower parents or give them that confidence to, that they know what they're doing, even if they've not read the book.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because we feel the same way, which is like, you can read 1,000 books.
Yeah.
But it's you doing the work. It's you doing the showing up, the difficult conversations, the leaning in, the leaning out. It is about tapping into your inner wisdom as a parent. And so I love that you said that we really have lost our connections and our trust of ourselves.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, though?
For a whole load of reasons. I think it's let's go back to the schools as well, because it's almost like they're, if the intention of the school is to produce factory workers, it's kind of an intention of it to disconnect from yourself as well. So it comes at us from many different angles, it feels, and we just lose it. We just lose it. And it's my personal experience, even when I feel like I have it as well, it's a very fragile thing to hold on to. I might have it, but then something happens, and it's just gone. It's not there. It doesn't come back for a few hours, or it's something that really needs our attention, where our attention has been hijacked as well with phones and social media and entertainment and these kind of things. We're just, so many things in society seem to be pulling us away from ourselves. All advertising, that's how it works. We're on, and so it's a very, we're going against the flow in this work.
Yeah.
It's natural in the sense it's coming back to ourselves, but at the same time very unnatural in our environment. So it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. As you were talking, I think one of the things that I truly believe is that we tend to give our authority away to other people and to other things, right? And so there is an element of us, and I say us because it's all of us as human beings that have created this world, that we have these systems, these things. There's an element of us that it's like you almost don't want to accept responsibility for what you've created. And so there's a group of us that are okay with people telling them what to do. It's okay with following these rules. It's okay with that, right? Because then you don't have to accept responsibility for your life and what you created. But you mentioned manifestation earlier. The ability to manifest and to align to all of the good in your life comes from the accepting responsibilities. Okay, this is what I've created, or this is what is currently happening. I've contributed to this. And from here, from my point of power, I can move towards focusing my attention and energy on what I do when I create.
Yeah.
And so there is an element of, okay, I've absconded my responsibility to other people as experts, right? Or from this book or that book or whatever, but then are not really stepping up into our own power. And that makes it really challenging for us to work from that place, right? Especially in parenting.
Yeah. And it's, in that sense, it's a very, leading parents into like a vulnerable territory almost, is to rediscover that responsibility, or find that it can, when you get there, you're going to feel everything, all the highs and all the lows.
Yeah, exactly. Because don't we want somebody to fix it? Like I'm a parent of teenagers. You have little guys, right? So I'm a parent of teens and preteens. And sometimes the stuff that they go through was not stuff I went through, very different challenges. Sometimes it feels so heavy and you don't know how to help them, but you can't save them, right? And so, but you wish somebody would just like, would just tell you how to do it right. And you can't. And that uncertainty, the unknown, can feel really uncomfortable. I've said this to my teens at times, and we have a great relationship. But there's times when they're going through their most challenging times when I say, I don't know how to help you. I don't know. What do you need from me in this moment? It feels like, oh my God, I should know this. Like maybe there's an element of self-criticism, like, I should know this. I'm their parent.
Yeah. You feel, and there's a guilt that comes with maybe not knowing it or not having those answers in the moment.
Yeah.
And I feel, especially with stuff like guilt as well, a lot of the books out there and the advice is to kind of steer away from guilt, get away, guilt-free parenting. I think there's books called as well, guilt-free, these kind of things. And it's the same, coming back to the connection, or coming away. For me, it's the same thing. It's leading us away from the connection to ourselves. Guilt is something that, when it shows up in my work, I always say, great. It shows that you care. You're in a relationship where part of you really wants to take responsibility for what happened. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean that you were the cause, or you don't have to go with it or make it right or wrong, but it's going to be then either side. So just always, have your guilt.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's sort of like, welcome those emotions, don't make them wrong, right? Yeah.
And I guess how that links into what you were saying is it's having your emotions, having that experience, that unknown is that guilt, and being able to stay with it.
Yeah,
and that's
like
where the
really
wisdom
leaning
comes.
into it.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I think that, I'm so blessed to have the children that I do, and also to be able to have the conversations that I do with them. I remember as a kid when I realized my parents were human. I think I had my parents on a pedestal. And then when I realized, like, sometimes when they did different things that were so hurtful, like realizing that, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. Oh my God. Like, and really sometimes feeling so hurt. I took the opportunity to tell my kids kind of early on in the relationship that I didn't always know what I was doing. It's that sometimes I wasn't going to get it right. And it's sort of like, forgive me in advance, right? Like, so, like really talking about doing the best we can and not always getting it right, and being able to talk about it and ask for forgiveness, and talking about, that doesn't mean that, I wasn't confident as a parent. It just meant that I understood that I was a human being first, working through learning on my way to how to become a parent, and that I was going to stumble and make different choices that maybe I was going to look back and go, maybe not. And so I think that kind of helped me in the way to have a better relationship with my kids, rather than having that. Why do you think we have that kind of,
how was it received?
Hierarchy?
How was it received, Fern?
It was actually received very well. In fact, that my kids kind of joked about, like, the fact that, I know. It's sort of like, it was sort of like a funny joke, right? I think that sort of helped when, like, the fact that we were able to come back and say, I'm sorry about that. Like, I think that the being able to come back and talk about the fact that, like, myself or my husband had made a mistake, or the willingness to talk about how that felt, was good. Like, I think it was, I think the kids still held us in a pedestal of some sort. I think it might be a natural thing for children to do. But I think once we fell off the pedestal, I think they were like, oh yeah, they kind of told us. So I think they still had that pedestal thing, but I think when we fell, it wasn't as far to fall, maybe.
Yeah. It's almost like what comes up for me when you talk is like it gave you the space to pause in the relationship and just explore what was happening for maybe both of you. And they were old enough to do that with you and see. And I imagine that if you weren't able to do that, then you're not leading them into that territory of being able to pause themselves.
Yeah. Although it can feel challenging at times, like when I'm interested in what you would tell parents. Like if I cannot regulate myself, I cannot help them regulate.
Yeah.
But sometimes they have a hard time with me saying, I can't help you right now. I need to put my own oxygen mask on first. There's times when I think my children want me to fix it. And I'm like, I can't fix it for you. I can't do this. If I could, I would have done it already. I would have been like, fixed.
Yeah.
But I can't. But sometimes there's like a little bit of that parent guilt, which is like, oh, I wish I could be there for you. But I know right now that my bucket is empty.
Mm.
What would you say to parents?
A few things come up. First of all, it makes a difference developmentally where the children are at. So for my children, 4 and 2, I wouldn't do that
Fair enough.
with them. Yeah, they're just too young, because until the ages of about 5, at least 5 to 7, children can only have one feeling, one emotion, one thought at a time, which is why everything's pure, and the tantrums, and
Yeah.
I believe in Santa Claus and these things. Everything is just one thing at a time, and then if everything unfolds, like your flower analogy, everything, the potential is realized, then we're able to mix emotions and feelings, so we can have love for someone and want to hit them at the same time, and we can have them in the same, but it might not unfold as a tantrum, that our experiences become tempered. So for younger children, if I'm saying my bucket is full, I'm giving them the message that they're responsible for my feelings.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just, and because they can only do one thing at a time, then that's what they're going to do. And they almost become the parent in the relationship,
for sure.
And everything gets skewed. And so it depends development. And even though that is potentially could happen 5 or 7, we're all different. We all have different. So sometimes that, it depends. That's why we all know our kids better. Mums, they know their kids best. So we'll all be the ones to know this. So that would be the first thing that comes to mind. And the second thing is, it's showing that when they're developmentally right, when you have that sense, it's showing the human quality of that we're not, we can't do things, and you're experiencing what's it like for you in that moment. Might be frustration or sadness or a mixture, and you're just showing these normal kind of journey of the emotions and how they show up in life, and they just get to see that in you. The reason why I raised it because here, I'm not sure the same in Canada, but you hear a lot of, with young children, don't hit me, you make me sad, or that makes me angry. And we were almost taught in the books to share our emotions with our young children, with the aim to teach them the behaviors, the pushing and pulling of behaviors, which is kind of what we really want to get to. And they're just developmentally, they just can't handle it. And what it does, it just sets them up to be the parent and take responsibility and the only way they can do that at that age is shutting part of themselves down, which feels it, which ironically maybe suits them in our society, and it might look like everything's going well and everything, but it's not good for development.
Oh, for sure. Thank you so much for raising that. That's really important, because developmentally, in terms of where the kids are, you can have those conversations. I can have those conversations because my kids are older, right?
Yeah.
And so my kids are 14 and 12. The fact that I have older kids, I'm able to say to them, like if they're struggling, okay, I just need a moment to regulate myself, and then I can help you co-regulate. Or I will say, like, what do you need from me? So I can have those conversations with them. But when they were little, that's a totally different thing. That's sort of like a tap in, like my husband would have to tap in if I just didn't.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that emotional awareness at the time.
Yeah.
For me, it was about giving. And then I would get frustrated when I would give. When my kids were little, I didn't have that awareness that I have now about the need to put my own oxygen mask on first. But I think what you said is really key about how little or how old are they when you can actually start to have those conversations, right?
Yeah. But what else? Another thing that comes up for me is we're not meant to parent in this way. We're not meant to be, quite often it's just one parent in charge. If we're lucky, we've got two, even if we're together, it being in the same place, for however many years we've been around, we've been in tribes. There would have been aunts and uncle, and just the kids would just be bouncing off. And so the chances are you wouldn't have, filled up anyway. Yeah. Or if you would, it would have been a seamless move out, and it wouldn't have had the same effect that it does in our, parenting, isolated parenting systems that we have now. It's kind of a new thing which has grown with our society. So I said, you just have to experience, have your emotions for what's happening. Just you have to experience it and have space for it as well.
I think you raised the other key thing too, is that like the need for community, right? Like we really are raising our kids in isolation, especially if you're a single parent. The need for that community, the need to come together to help us really come together. And I am so grateful that we have learned so much about parenting. Remember when we used to have to let our kids cry? That was so painful. It was very painful for me in particular. I found it really, I just couldn't do it.
But we were told to do this.
Yeah, it was, we couldn't do it. Like I just couldn't, it was so heartbreaking. Like it was heartbreaking for me. I just couldn't regulate enough for me to allow them to cry. It was grating to me to hear them cry and cry and cry. But that's the advice that we gave, right? And so, but now we're saying that advice is outdated and hurtful.
Wow. Not so much here in the UK, I don't think. I mean, there is part of us that it's not the only way to do it, but it's still very common here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, so one of the things that we hear, like at least now, is that is not a very loving thing to do, that there's the reassurance needs to happen still, like that reassurance in terms of you need to come back, soothe, and then go, and come back, soothe, and do it that way. But even then I just don't think that we're meant to parent in the same, like what you had mentioned, which is when you think about the olden times, and not that I was around in the olden times, but when you look at tribes and communities, the babies are with the parents everywhere they go. Yeah. Like have we studied if those kids have attachment issues? Like, because when you see them with their parents constantly, right, in community. And then when you think about there's that model of attachment. There's that model of attachment that says, if kids are securely attached, they will naturally go and explore. Like once they have that secure attachment,
the home base.
Yeah, they have a securely home base. Yeah. And they can, that attachment, if they're securely attached, they will actually want to explore. They don't want to be next to you. They want to actually see the world, but they have to have that reassurance that there's that secure base.
And so a lot of parenting techniques are you can be too secure. Let's say that the attachment can be too secure, or there's a worry about that. But I mean, I study a lot with Neufeld, with Gordon Neufeld, and he would say, just like the plant analogies that you've used before, you can a plant or a tree, it can never be too securely attached.
Yeah,
it can be too insecurely attached. Yes, but it's very different.
The model I was thinking is circle of security.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's the nurturing. It's called circle of security. So there's a nurturing, and the more that there is that secure base, then the kids naturally go and explore, and then they'll come back to the secure base. And then over time, their exploring becomes bigger than that secure base.
Yeah.
But growing up, I wasn't taught that because my parents didn't have a secure base, right? They grew up with, some child abuse and neglect. And so it's amazing how it gets handed down, those kinds of old perspectives about how we should parent. Is there anything that we do currently that you think maybe years from now we'll go like, maybe that's not the best thing we could be doing?
Oh, I think most of it. I would say, yeah. I mean, yeah, there'd be I feel like society is quite open about this. We're not set up for children or family, we're set up more for the economy, getting a bigger GDP and getting people into the workplace. That's where our focus is. Yeah, we have things set along that road, dotted around, like that might support these kind of things, but that's the main goal of the things we have into the schools, the systems are to take us to that place. Yeah. And we've bought into it.
Because we think that's what determines success, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of the things I'm thinking about because my kids are older, they're thinking about graduating high school and what do they do next? And there is this real impetus towards, well, they got to go to university and they have to have good paying jobs and whatever. And so I see that my children struggle with not knowing what they're going to do. And should I know this now? And it's like, no, live your life, have joy, right? Like live the most in this moment. Do what brings you the greatest pleasure. What I mean is, like, for example, like if drawing is something that fulfills you, maybe that's what you want to do a career in, right? It's so thinking outside of this conventional, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, right? It's what makes your heart sing, brings you joy. And could that be your life path potentially, right?
Yeah. And even if it isn't on the, the economical part to, we all live in the real world, it's something you can have space for in your lives. And there's so many kids that just don't have any idea of what that is.
Yeah. And I think that's
they just don't know what they want to do. They don't for a career, for a hobby, or they just don't, they haven't had space. They haven't been led to that place where they can find that.
Well, and I think, from my perspective, I think that would be a great opportunity for schools to do that, right? Like, I mean, they go to career counseling, right? Like, oh, you do a survey.
Yeah.
It seems like they still do the same things. When I was younger, they did a survey and they're like, you'd be good for social work. I didn't end up doing that. I did that. I did something. I didn't even know what social work was, but I scored high on the social work.
Accounting. And I was like, but I don't like it. I don't like it though.
So I think they still have the same survey, because I think my daughter mentioned that she completed it. But so rather than really aiming to cultivate what brings you joy and what really is your gift to this world, right, it's more like fit this box. And so, and I don't mean that as a form of criticism. We've all contributed to this world that we have created. It's just, I think we are kind of redefining what it means to be happy, what it means to be joyful, what it means to be successful and to be fulfilled. Yeah. And I think that those changes will reflect also as well in terms of how we parent children, right? And the sort of expectations that come along with being a parent. Because I remember my parents had expectations of me, and I'm trying hard not to have expectations of my children in a way that is diminishing, right? Like that, it's sort of that unconditional love. You're only lovable if you achieve. You're only lovable if you are successful. You're only lovable. You're still lovable even if you decide that, I guess, playing electronics all day is what you're going to do. It might not be a good balance. And so one of the things we talk about with our kids about is living a balanced life, right? Which is having good exercise, going out and having fun with your peers. You can do some electronics, right? Like that brings you joy and makes you play with people. but also you have to have other aspects of your life that are in good balance,
Yeah.
including, honoring yourself in your environment, which means chores and, like taking care of their body and hygiene,
And
for example.
how is it received when you have those?
To be honest, in all of these conversations that I have with my children is stuff I've learned along the way from them and from our interactions. I find, so before, when I was younger and hadn't gone really through my self-love, self-compassion journey, I had a thing about cleaning because my mom was a bit of a clean freak. And so I had a
Yeah.
thing about cleaning, and there was so much resistance to it. I would force them, and I didn't realize I was making them miserable and making myself miserable every weekend when we would clean. And then one day I had it with myself, and I had it with that. I didn't want to have to suffer through another weekend of cleaning. And I didn't want to make them suffer because they would complain about how much I was making suffer. When they were littler, they were more apt to cleaning. We would make it more fun. But as they grew older and sometimes they just didn't want to do their chores, there was a lot of resistance in me. And then I would put a lot of pressure on them. And so then one day I just said to myself, I'm done with this. If I really want this to be clean, I'm going to do it myself. Like if that's really important, I think, why do I want them to do these chores? And I said to myself, okay, I want them to, because I want them to have these skills to be able to take care of themselves in their environment when they leave elsewhere, right? Because when they leave my house, when they leave from not being with me, I'm going to have to do it, right? Or I can hire someone. And so,
and that's just to jump in there, but please continue after just to check it. The idea, and I feel like this in society, is that our responsibility is to teach these skills or teach these, and you can, it's almost if you can teach someone how to clean up, but you can't teach them to want to clean up.
Yeah.
Two very different, but go on.
So what I found was, I let go of the resistance of the need for it to happen, and in the need for it to happen in a specific way. I sat down with my kids and I said, basically, we feel that you doing a chore is your way of saying thank you. We're all responsible for keeping our environment clean. And from our perspective, it was about skill building. It was about, when you leave this place, you honor yourself and you honor your environment by keeping your things tidy, keeping your body clean, all of those things. When I changed my approach and said, and then I started to say, you know what, I'm going to teach you how to clean a bathroom. So I went through the different steps, which I hadn't done before, right? And then I sort of let it go. And if they didn't do their chores that week, I honestly said, okay, is it important for me to clean this? And I would just do it myself. I found once I released the resistance, it became harmonious. And honestly, my kids started to do it themselves out of their own volition, out of their own joy. One of my children will hum and haw at times, but then I just remind them and say, this is how we're building a skill. This is what I'm teaching you this time. And then the whole thing flips. It changes. It goes from resistance to, oh, what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn that I didn't know? And they'll say, oh, I know how to do that. And I said, well, did you do this? And then he'll go, oh, no, I didn't. And there's I see the resistance release, and they're more open to being able to know, oh, I'm learning a skill. I'm learning something that I can have in my toolbox, rather than it being, I have to do this. I'm your child slave. Which was always the perspective, right? Like, oh, well, you just want me to do this, so you have somebody, right? And so once I realized the resistance, like once I realized that I was making everybody miserable and decided to let go of that, the whole process just became harmonious from my perspective, and I think from theirs as well. I mean, sometimes we squabble over like the dishes and stuff, but then at the end, my husband and I will do them, and then we just kind of rather see the space cleaner than but that was
what comes up for me as you share that is there's a kind of, you brought them into relationship more with that, and the values, our values they're passed down more naturally in that sense. There's not, whereas when it's forced, like you say, and it comes with all your emotion and your whatever's going through you, there's just a very natural, no, not going to do that, resistance to it, and you're just really far away from them in that point, but you found a way to come to their side or come closer to them. And whenever you're there, it's just, the teaching is just effortless, isn't it? It's just, this is easy. Whereas if I'd asked you in the resistance, you might have said, how do I do? You might have,
I
and
was
if you
the
hadn't have seen
victim,
that,
Joe.
going,
I was,
tell me how to do this.
I was
Yeah.
like, I'm always doing this. And sometimes I do fall into that victim mode. And then what I'll do is, I take opportunities to say, okay, what do I need in this moment? Okay, I really need to to myself, to ask for help, to whatever. And then so I will give myself what I need in in that moment. And then I can let go of the resistance. But until I do that, I'm not open to that shift. And so, but this has been through, like, learning through making mistakes, which is what I love what you said about, going back to yourself in terms of what feels right for you in your relationship with your kids, because all kids are different, right? And so what each of my kids needs from me is different in their own ways, and how they communicate with me those needs is very different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And brings me back to the point at the beginning. Very often when we notice these troubles or things aren't working, just like the schools do, it's very easy for us to get the problem is in the child.
Yeah.
Whereas you were able to stay with yourself. Might have took a bit longer than you wanted to, but you stayed there, and there was, you noticed something, and then there was a shift, and everything else just flowed. There's no one, I tell me if I'm wrong, but no one told you what to do, or it just kind of worked. You knew what to do in that place, but you wouldn't have got there without having to go through that pause, notice what was happening, and then there was some kind of release for you, and everything came from there.
Yeah, and that's when in my parenting journey, like, it's really been about trying to understand. In the beginning, it was about trying to understand my kids, right? Like, it still is. I'm trying to get to know who they really are and to really see them, because I didn't feel always as seen. And it's not purposeful. My parents were doing the best they could, the same way that I am doing the best I can. We all sort of are, right? It's more about understanding how my beliefs about them, about who they are, and my reactions impact the relationship. And so what I'm trying to say is it's really important for me to understand where I'm at every moment. Like, when I'm triggered by my kids, I take that opportunity to say, okay, what's happening? What do I need in this moment? What's happening for me? Whereas before, it would be like, oh, this is your fault. You're doing this, or you're not doing that.
Yeah.
Because if I can't regulate myself enough, I can't engage in conversations. And sometimes I can't. And
Yeah,
so
I was
for
going to say, can you
me,
do it live? Or sometimes it's, looking back the day before, or
I've done it live. And this is where I had said to you that, earlier, when I said to my kids, I need to regulate myself right now. I'm dysregulated. So we can't have this conversation in this moment, because I'm not going to be receptive, and I'm not, but my kids are older, so they understand that piece.
Yeah.
I have these conversations more with my daughter than my son. My daughter's 14. My son is 12, 13. Right. So, and so I just say, I just need a moment, and they know that I go and meditate, and I just need a moment to regroup, to really understand what's happening for me. And then I can come back. Sometimes it isn't in the moment, and I have to reflect back. And that's where the apology is so important, to be able to come back and go, I'm really sorry for how I acted then. I can see that this is not making up an excuse, but I can see how that was, hurtful or inappropriate or whatever. I usually find my kids are very forgiving, right? But but sometimes you have to deal with all of those uncomfortable emotions. What helps you lean in? Like, what do you offer? Like, what do you suggest to parents in helping them stay in those? Because sometimes it feels really mucky to feel with those feelings of shame and guilt, and like those kind of inner judgments that we make.
Well, it's really, how would I say, my intention is to facilitate, cultivate a kind of an energy all about compassion, having compassion for those parts when they show up. And Gordon Neufeld I love this quote. He says, every child needs an invitation to exist in our presence, an invitation to exist in our presence. And I take that as well to mean all parts of us. So all parts. So my intention is, as these emotions, the hard ones that we experience, the shame, the guilt, the whatever it might be when it comes up. How can we cultivate a relationship with these where they have an invitation to exist in our presence, which we can do now as adults, hopefully, not all the time, but in the right place, sometimes live, sometimes not. Can we make space for them at time and really get to know them, befriend them, and so it's like cultivating that energy towards them. It's in the relationship with them, just like it was in the relationship with yourself, with the tidying up, which helped with the actual outcome of it. That's where I put the energy. I invite the energy to go. So, and that starts with me. I'll be, let's have a look at that. Let's see that's what the session is all about. To have those feelings, to lead people into the vulnerable territory like that. Yeah, and hopefully from that they can do that themselves as well, and they go and they start to do it more, and that's where all our natural wisdom is. But these things have to just move first, and we have to get to know them, and many of us, we've disconnected from them from an early age. Negative, people would say negative, positive emotions as well, and the idea behind that we kind of get is, okay, we're going to move towards the positive one, and we're going to get away from the negative ones. But really the invitation is that they all have work for us to do.
Yeah.
Just like that guilt is a great sign that we're taking responsibility in a relationship it's great that we have it. Not something that you might want to experience on a Friday night, or you want to move to, or have like happiness or peace or something like that. But when it's there, welcome it.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you said that, because it's true. There's no negative and positive emotions. They'll kind of have a gift that they're giving us, sort of like a warning signal, right? Like it might be an annoying warning signal, but it's telling us that it's either we're out of alignment, like, our beliefs or our actions may not be in alignment with who we truly are.
And these emotions, they have work to do and I would say the primary work of those, and to help us stay connected, and to help us form attachments. Yeah. And that's where they're experienced in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in staying attached especially connected to ourselves and our own emotions, helps us to be able to bear witness to those difficult emotions that our kids have. How do you manage your kids' tantrums?
Well, if I'm on form, it's just like that welcoming energy. It's just great. Say it's a tantrum of frustration. I didn't get this thing, or this didn't work out. So it's great that they can have that emotion. In the back of my mind is, how can I make it safe for them to experience this and express it? Where am I? Maybe I'm at home and it's just me, and you don't have the eyes on you. It's great. They can hear it or scream or do something, and it's much. Maybe we're in a supermarket or something like that, and there's eyes on me as well. And it's harder for me to do that as well. So, and there's so many different situations, but the always in the back of mind is, how can I keep this safe for this to move through them, and come with them on that journey, come alongside them as they go through that journey. And what you notice when you do that, and it works, is with frustration, it turns to sadness, and there's kind of a release, and it didn't work, something didn't work, and it's the energy dissipates, and it goes, and it's just but if it doesn't work, if you don't manage to do it, or you're in the wrong place and it's too much for you, and it kind of get arrested, and it just doesn't complete. And what I noticed after, we're just going to have to go through the same thing, later on, before doing it in a safer place, or it's going to move somewhere else, or maybe it will move towards my wife or someone else in there who looks after them, and it will be kind of in the bank, ready to move for later.
Yeah. And that's so great that you say that, because I've observed that. I've observed that
Yeah,
with my kids. Sometimes when they are like, they're just so pent up, they need to, it's almost like they need to push off that energy to someone else,
yeah,
and then they're fine.
yeah,
And it's sort of like, you know, and so rather than allowing it to dissipate, sometimes they just have to push it, and then they're fine. And then everybody else is in a bad mood. It's so
yeah, yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
I've definitely experienced that.
And I love, emotion. I know E in Latin is to, and motion is move. To move, it just will always want to move, and it's a process of coming alongside it and help giving it ways to move. And wherever our kids at developmentally, the younger they are, the more help they'll need to come outside. And then as they get older, it can come out in different ways, more expressive in art or in writing or something. And it's just always a changing process, but every time just trying to make the way to their side, to be with them on that journey, and not to get in the way of it in a way.
Yeah.
But just to create safety around it. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I would have, especially for young children, is play.
Mm-hmm.
Can I bring it into a play mode? And when
Mm-hmm.
that works, if there's a frustration with our daughter, and sometimes we can just go into this play. We're going to have a play fight, or
Mm-hmm.
we can go and do like have an attacking, call each other poo poo heads and this kind of stuff. And it's play, and it just, the energy just goes that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another safe way for it to move.
So you transform it basically. Yeah. So rather than it moving and going and,
Yeah,
you know, setting off a firecracker of upsetness,
yeah,
it's more around how can we shift it? We
yeah.
transform that
Well,
energy
not
of,
I mean, I don't do it, or it
oh yeah.
just, I'm just there when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I look. And if I've created the environment, it will just happen naturally,
Yeah.
just like it does. And if I haven't, that one's saved for later, or it will be displaced, or. But hopefully, what I don't want it is for it to be pushed down or like
Yeah.
repressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
what I'm
I
not
think
looking for.
that's so when we repress those emotions, that's where difficulties start to come, right? Whether it be like relationship difficulties
Yeah,
or disorders.
yeah.
I was wondering are both your kids the same gender?
No,
Oh,
my
okay. Have
daughter's
you
four.
found differences in terms of what is vocalized are acceptable emotions for children?
Not in them so far, a bit too young for me to, but more generally with other children, yeah, there's definitely don't be sad is a bit more for boys than for, these kind of things. And there are little things like that. And my wife will say to me, she'll notice that in me when I'm dealing with my son and my daughter, that I have more space for her emotions than maybe his.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see it,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah.
But these things can be very, they are unconscious. So it's just something it stays with me to look at, but there'll always be things we won't be able to see in ourselves.
Yeah. I think this is where it's helpful, like to have a loved one. It doesn't necessarily have to be a partner, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah,
Mirror back to us those areas of growth for us, right? Because like you said, we might not notice.
yeah,
I remember my son when he was really, really little. He was such a loving and affectionate person, just always loving and affectionate, always wanting to hug people. And in my culture in Peru, like we hug and kiss people all the time.
yeah,
It's like, you know, but it was interesting to see the dynamics as he got older, how that was regarded by other people in terms of what boys should be doing, and in terms like more acceptable in girls, not as acceptable for kids, for boys to show that kind of level of, you know,
yeah,
desire for hugs and love and that affection. And so it was interesting for me to see, because I guess I hadn't expected it, right? And so it was like, oh, now the conversations have to be different. It have to be about like people's, which is, you know, it's fair, like people's spaces and respect of like the boundaries and our culture versus other people's cultures. But it was interesting how, as my kids grow up, the conversations for boys and girls around what are the acceptable emotions? Anger is acceptable for men. Anger, not so acceptable for women.
Yeah.
Sadness, not so acceptable for men. Women, okay to be sad. So it's weird how we limit that the toolbox, but the kids need all of those tools to be able to demonstrate. And so it's interesting how we've created a society that does that, right?
Yeah. We need all of them, and it's weird, and it is different. We have a similar thing in our because my wife's from Colombia.
Oh,
so
nice.
they're, you know, exactly what you were saying, and we're you know, English. We're very stand back there, you know, and that so it's we'll find that. I'm sure we'll find that as they get older as well, because they're being raised in England.
Yeah. We're coming to the end of the podcast. I just want to give you a moment to tell people where they can find you, where they can come work with you. So tell us about your websites, anything that you got working on. Please share it.
So my website is www.joeatkinson.co.uk. I'm a therapist, obviously work with a lot of parents, but not necessarily, you don't have to be a parent to work with me. I offer some mentoring for children as well, but I work more with adults now than I do with children. And we've just started a podcast ourselves called The Caring Instinct. So come and check that out. The idea is that once it builds up, we'll set up a parent support group which will meet once a month, and the idea is for parents to reconnect to themselves and you know, step away from experts and specialists, and we want to kind of create that environment there to rediscover parenting in that way.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's based on the work of Gordon Neufeld at the Neufeld Institute. Please check him out. And
it's so great. Thank you so much, Joe, for coming to talk to us about your experiences and your knowledge and your wisdom. And please check us out again on another episode of the Love and Compassion podcast with Gissele.